ready to share with you guys. We're gonna talk about open concepts in here. I wanna make it a little closer right there. Look at that's a power beam right there. Okay, it's very simple.
You got it.
I'm going to share with you guys something very cool. I'm gonna ask 5 simple questions on this video, and hopefully we don't bore you. But I want to bring as much value I can. All right, so I'm gonna, according to ChatGPT, I'm going to ask, hey, what's the 5 most common questions from this list that I should answer right now for customers about kitchen renovations and creating open concepts? So in this case, we're going to talk about beams, supporting beams to create open concept from kitchen to the dining room. That's very common in this time, and I'll talk about that very shortly, and I'm going to answer 5 questions following ChatGPT's advice. First, can I tear down that wall? How to tell it's structural? How to tell if it's structural? That's a great question, and this is the way I will address that question. You need to have a little bit of knowledge about how the house has been built, but if this is your backs of the house, and if this wall is the outside of the backs of the house, then that probably is a structural wall. Also, one other thing is, in this case, that back section is an addition, or the roof on the back section is a little bit lower. So that means the main house ended up somewhere right here. And that section, they did an addition probably 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. So this right here, even they did an addition to the back, this is a structural wall. So now where your house ends, if you can tell that, then you can know this is a structural wall. How else? If you can tell the floor joists are running one direction and there's a wall in there hold below the floor joist, that also we call a structural wall. And also, how else we can tell that? If there is a wall in here and the second floor there is another wall right above in that line, in the same line, the same direction, that also will tell you that's a structural wall. So it's a couple of ways to tell a structural wall. First thing, if the exterior enclosure of the house is that. Also, if it's somewhere you can tell there is an addition, or the roof on the top is lower, or you can see the shoulder, then you can tell a structural wall. I hope that answers that question. I'll make this short as possible. So question number 2. What do you need to know about structural walls and beams? I'm going to talk about the importance, the supporting, modifications, layout, all this. Let me start from the beginning. I'm sorry, I forgot the question. What do you need to know about the structural walls and beams? Okay, let me just break it in in 3 and 2 important steps. One is structural means it's something holding the house. So that means it's holding something above that. Now, if something holding above that, if you take that away, that means the one above, it could really start coming down. So that's what the structural means. Now, how a beam, I'm sorry, what was the question again? Okay, and beams, how beam works. So beam works, if we have a wall, in this case, there is a wall right here, and we are opening up this wall right here, that means all the stools right here is gonna be removed, so we have to resupport this some way. This open space some way. And the only way to do that is putting what we call it a beam. In this case, it's a power beam, 3.5 by 12. It will go from corner to corner. And I'm pretty sure the question will be, how do you size the beam? That right there, my friends, an architect will be able to guide us through. But we didn't have that question, so we're gonna kind of glaze it over and not really dive deep into it. But yes, so there is a multiple size of the beam. There is different types, depend on the weight. But all that calculation, an engineer will be able to give you that information. Next, what's the cost of expanding kitchen or converting to open concept? That also is a great question, and I'm going to address this in this way. That all depends. What depends? it depends on multiple factors. One is if this wall is really holding a lot, even the structural walls, there are some walls that are carrying more weight than the other ones. I'm going to elaborate this a little bit more in depth. If the house is coming this way, and the rafters are coming this way, so that means this wall right here is going to be holding all the weight of the roof, of the snow, and also the floor joists. So the floor joists are running this way, so that means the rafter is coming this way. So this wall right here, it will be holding, it's so much more weight than the wall right here, which also going to be holding the ridge bend on the top, the ridge beam. So that means that wall in this case, in this house, actually the house is running this way. That wall right here, it's so much more weight than this right here. And if that wall right here, it's the same weight as this, right there, ladies and gentlemen, we need a way more beam than here. Way bigger, taller, and fatter, or some type of different. Again, all that answers, the engineer or the architect will give you that information. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Now, I never give you the answer for the cost. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I hope that give you some information. Now, for a beam that's easy to use, easy like this, just break it in, cut it in, just the beam, not finishes, not the kitchen. This right here is about $120,000 kitchen. This beam right here, only this part is about $15,000 to $20,000 to do this beam installation and whatever openings to be done. Obviously, then the finishes and all that depends. I hope that giving a starting point for the beams. It can really go expensive. It can go expensive as $50,000 if we will go flush with the ceiling and the open concept, it gets full weight of the house. And then also in that case, if it will be the starter weight on that part, and then we gotta do flitch beams, metal beams, more combination LVLs. It just depends how big is the opening and how complicated the job could be. Okay, I hope that give you some answers in there. Next question. How do you inspection works on remodelers? How do inspection work? That's a great question again. All right, this is the way it works. The architect will put a plan together, taking the design information, the designer information. When the designer put the design together, the architect will be involved to really put in the structural plans to it. With that in hand, we'll bring this to the town to make sure the town can review it. But once it's signed and sealed by an architect, they will review it and they will give permits for us so we can start the work. With that permits, we can start really doing the entire work. When whole thing is done, then we will call the inspector from the town. The inspector will come in here and will say, okay, Freddie, let me just check the plans. All right, this looks according to the plans. There is somebody professional, a structural engineer, have really reviewed all the calculations, so we are good to go. So everything looks good, you guys are good to go, and then we can close the walls. Usually in this type of remodelings, first thing comes the plumber, electric, and then the building to check the last part, make sure structural everything is intact. Okay, I hope that answered that question. Last one on the 5. How long does a kitchen renovation usually takes? That's another great question. The short answer will be all depends. In this kitchen renovation, kitchen like this, if we're not doing the living room or the other section, kitchen like this will take between 2 months and 3 months to renovate it. Again, all depends how big it's going to be, how much of the expansion are we doing, are we creating an open concept, are we closing windows, are we replacing it just all depends. But in most of the kitchen takes between 2 months and 3 months. If it's just a facelift of the kitchen, it could be as low as 2 weeks. Okay, I hope that answers some of the questions you guys have. I am super happy that you guys hung up with me and really take your time. I'm here try to bring as much value I can and as much information I can. Now, that being said, thank you so much. Now I give you 5 tips. With that,